Cryptid Wilderness Research Podcast. I am CWR team member Daniel Becker up here in Anchorage, Alaska, staring into the Arctic abyss. And joining me, as always, from Quincy, Washington, Matt Slater.
Hello.
Matt, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. We got sunny skies, 50 degrees. We're rolling into spring here pretty fast.
Well, that's good. It's -9 here.
Ouch.
-9.
Ouch.
Ugh, it's killing me. It's killing me. I don't know how much longer I can do this with these winters. So today joining us will be Amanda Stowers. Amanda is one of the hosts of Squatch and Holler, which is live on YouTube Thursday at 8 p.m. 7 Central. And she is also an employee of the Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum. Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia. And I told her earlier I'm jealous of that job because what a great place to be to hear people's stories, right?
Absolutely, that would be perfect.
I know, I would love that. I would absolutely love it. So let's bring in Amanda Stowers. Hello.
Hey,
how are you doing?
I'm doing good, sir. So yeah, it's a balmy 65 here in North Georgia right now. So I am not jealous at all of your temperatures.
How dare you? I'll tell you. You know, down in Georgia, you are in absolutely a fantastic state for cryptid research. And like, what time of year do you usually hear about the most activity?
Honestly, it's all year long. We get more recent reports, it seems like, probably in the fall, or at least that seemed to be the case last year in 2025. But yeah, we get reports all year long there at the museum. And now that I'm taking reports on my own as Amanda the Bigfoot Lady on my social media, yeah, I get reports all year long anymore.
That's awesome. So, and just to recap, you know, kind of branching over from our conversation last year, the Bigfoot in Georgia, do they have a reputation of being more aggressive or not so much?
Not so much that I personally have come across. I think it's like a basic 50-50. You know, you have some that are aggressive, more like, or at least in my what happened to me, you know, it was aggressive because we walked up into its living room basically. And then you have others that are very docile. You know, people exchange gifts with them. People, there's several different researchers here in North Georgia who go into active areas constantly and have interactions with the Bigfoot families in those areas. So it's kind of a combination of both.
Now, you mentioned your social media platform. You have a fantastic TikTok channel there. I don't know if they call it channels on TikTok, but a TikTok
I'm not actually sure either. Yeah, TikTok channel, TikTok page, I think is technically the thing.
You have a great TikTok page and you post a lot of good stuff. And since we're talking about the social media platform, I wanted to ask you about AI.
Ugh.
You know, AI and a lot of the Bigfoot pages and postings that I see coming up, you're seeing a lot more AI. But with the Bigfoot research community as a whole, how do you think AI is now affecting that community?
I wish it could say that it was positive, but unfortunately 90% of it is having a negative effect on the Bigfoot community because as you guys see, you know, people will post stuff, you know, oh, look at this, you know, fantastic picture I got on this trail cam. And it's like, it's 100% AI, you know, generated. It's not real. It's fake. And unfortunately, it's just adding more. I mean, there's already some negative context in the cryptid research field, but it's definitely adding more laughability to the subject matter than it is bringing more credibility to the subject matter. And yeah, it's not helping. There is some positives to it, I think, and that's more in the like the search algorithms of it. I'll admit that I've used, you know, Grok and ChatGPT, you know, and some search things as kind of like an alternative to Google. Like, I'm looking up, like, "Hey, help me pull up, all the information that I can on the Wampus cat." I was doing some research on that recently, and it had all the websites and stuff like that listed out, so I could just go to them and check them. It's like, "Okay, I wanna research this information a little bit more." So in that aspect of it, yeah, there's some good things that could come from it, but the negatives totally outweigh the positives, in my opinion, just because, the data centers that are being built to house the, um, the hardware and software for these programs are, massive, massive warehouses that are draining natural resources in areas, the noise pollution. So, honestly, I've lived without it before, so I personally would be happy with living out without it going forward. I know a lot of other people, even my co-host Roger, he's a frequent user of AI, which I have no problems with. A lot of people get a good benefit from it. I just, in my opinion, I don't actually see too many of the benefits of it.
Yeah, it definitely has made, um, and I would even say emboldened, some hoaxers to go out
Mhm.
there and create these fake videos and these fake photos that they try to pass off as authentic, just
Yep.
in the goal of mocking, people who are believers in this phenomenon. And it's like I had said in a post one day that it's really muddied the waters.
Very
You
much
know,
so.
I've seen some researchers, use it for good ways, like promoting their channels or
Mhm.
their other social media platforms. So I've seen it used really cool. I wish I knew more about it. I just know a little bit,
Yeah.
but yeah, it definitely has muddied the waters a bit. So, um, also I've noted, it's with the hoaxers, it's hard enough doing this because you gotta deal with the regular trolls, the
Yes.
keyboard warriors that wanna get on there and I don't know what your experience has been, but we have had some comments that have just been nasty to the point of ridiculousness. I mean, to
Yeah,
where there's
I like the block button. You ain't gotta worry about that anymore. If
yeah,
you're
I
just
mean
gonna be that nasty and you're just there to try to, get a rise out of me or any of my followers or anything like that, just kick them to the curb because it's not worth giving them the time of day for that. And unfortunately, being a woman in this of a line of, subject matter, I guess you wanna call it, also brings out some interesting characters, and I've had to deal with some of that, which isn't very fun either.
yeah, I mean, these trolls will I mean, they go beyond some of them go beyond disagreement. They
Mhm,
start becoming just horribly insulting about you, your family members, your friends. I mean, it's just
mhm.
nuts.
It is, it gets
And,
nasty. There's no
yeah,
point in that. They teach us in
there
school not to bully people, why can't we do that as adults? I mean, come on, we're all supposed to be grown-ups, right?
yeah,
Right.
there have been times we've had to actually shut off comments, because, you know, we have, kids, kids that read this stuff,
Mhm. Same with
um,
me.
kids that are related to us and and a lot of times with the trolls, what I'll ask them is, um, "So tell us about your research. Tell us about your time in the field. We would love to hear your, the results of your boots on the ground." Um,
Mhm.
so and
Yeah,
then they kind of freeze up because they got nothing, you know?
Yeah.
exactly, I kinda do some I've done something similar in the past. It's well, if prove it to me why this is wrong, prove to me why this is false information or something like that. Like you said, crickets, nothing.
Yeah.
They
And
ain't got
once they
nothing.
and I understand when you're in this hobby, the criticism and the mocking and the stuff like that, it goes with the territory,
It does.
and it's something we've all grown used to, but some of these online trolls just take it way too far and become so nasty to the point where they make it personal
Mhm.
and we've had to actually, like I said, turn off comments on several different posts because the comments got so nasty. And I remember one guy sent me a message and called me a communist for having shut off the comments
Oh my
section on
gosh.
one of the yeah. and a communist because I turned off the comments. But so I had to actually laugh out loud on that one. I thought that was
Yeah, I mean, what else do you do at that point? I mean, gracious.
yeah, that one was a good one. And what happens when people get this nasty is they have completely eliminated the possibility that we could have meaningful dialogue.
Mhm.
They've completely eliminated that. And who knows? We could actually learn something from each other. You know, um,
Exactly. I
Yeah.
actually really enjoy having conversations sometimes with people who are more in the skeptical mindset of it. So that way you guys like, okay, well, that's actually really good. I can kind of see, your point of view. That actually makes a lot of sense. So here gives us as researchers, I hate the term, more fuel, I guess, to kind of say, okay, if this is something that people are not seeing the facts and stuff like that behind it, giving us more fuel to go, hey, here is actually more information that we as researchers could share with non-believers to kind of show, hey, there is actually something behind this fact. There is something behind this hypothesis. So I hope that all makes sense.
oh yeah, Matt and I like to say, and our partners as well, is when dealing with cryptozoology, never speak in absolutes because
Yes.
that which you think is true today, tomorrow, some new evidence may be uncovered that will completely change your outlook on that.
And it's
And
that way with any subject matter in the
right,
in science because you can't just take everything. It constantly changes, it constantly evolves.
yeah, there's lots of different viewpoints and lots of different theories when we're talking Sasquatch and other cryptids. And we always say, even if you disagree with someone, at least be open minded enough to take it under consideration,
Mhm.
to take a look at it. And,
Exactly.
we've got when it comes to Sasquatch, we've got the North American primate side of the house. We've got the extraterrestrial side of the house. We've got the interdimensional being side of the house. We've got the Nephilim connection side of the house.
Mhm.
And, um, various other theories in between. And and we've always felt that no one's theory is more valid than someone else's.
Exactly. Exactly, I agree 100% there. I think if we could get people on all these different sides to come together and just talk more and listen to each other, you might find grains of truth in all of them, which might actually help solve more pieces to the puzzle.
We've heard some theories that are pretty, you know, out there, I guess you could say. But
Exactly.
we always say that just because it hasn't happened to me
Mhm.
doesn't invalidate it, you know?
Exactly.
And what would you say is in all these different theories out there of what Bigfoot could be? What would you say is the theory that gets the most heat? Like from your experience, like in our experience, it's been the Nephilim connection theory and anything having to do with a biblical perspective. I mean, when we had L.A. Marzulli on a couple of times,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
we got heat each time.
I can only imagine, yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I agree that one does catch some heat, but also in what I have seen from people who come and visit the museum that I talk with and interact with, there's actually a lot of people who are really into that theory and are actually quite excited to see and hear other people who are into that theory because I kind of lean that way. I'm not 100% there, obviously, but I definitely see that just from my personal experiences and my personal beliefs. But, I think a lot of the interdimensional stuff where they can go in and out of portals, in and out of different realities, different dimensions and stuff like that, people are just kinda like, "Nah, that's too much. No, there's no way," that really gets them into the denial thing. So 90% of my conversations with people are, uh, not with necessarily with people, but with, how do I put this? Normies, I guess, people who aren't really into the subject matter, who are there just to, have a good time with their family and just, opening up conversation. You kinda lean more into the great ape theories with them a lot just to kind of give those little nuggets of truth, little seeds there to kind of plant to get their wheels turning, so then that way, hopefully, they'll go home and look into it a little bit more, and then they can start digging more into some of the other stuff if it comes along to them.
Yeah. Like I said, for us, it was that Nephilim connection theory. We have people, in our network of podcasters and researchers
Mhm.
that believe all different theories, and
Mhm.
and that's totally fine. And your guys' platform on Squatch and Holler and our platform, are safe platforms where people can come and express their thoughts, views, theories, opinions, and experiences without judgment and without
Yes,
criticism. And
that is huge.
sometimes we get comments from people and just angry, just angry. I'm never watching. The most memorable one for me was, I'm never watching your show again. The Bigfoot aren't Nephilim, and it was just
You're like,
like, "Oh, okay, all right." But yet
"Bye."
these same people that will criticize the Nephilim connection theory, and some of that isn't even saying that the Bigfoot are Nephilim. It says
Exactly.
it's there's a possibility they're connected to the Nephilim, maybe a
Mhm.
watered down descendant or what. There are various branches off into various sections, but these same people that absolutely come unglued for that theory are the same people that have no problems, with the extraterrestrial theory, for example.
Right,
They got no
exactly.
problem with that. That doesn't seem far-fetched or out there to them, but oh my gosh, you come from a biblical perspective, then gosh darn it, we're gonna put our fist down.
Well, you see that in other things, not necessarily just cryptozoology, just in general day and life when you try to mix, religious type, discussions with, let's just throw out something awful, politics and things like that, it can get really muddy and really, um, territorial and like, a lot of egos and stuff can get thrown around when you have differences of opinions in anything, and like I said, then you throw in a subject matter like Bigfoot of quote unquote something that's not supposed to exist into all of that. It like I said, it can make for some very interesting opinions.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Let's jump over to the museum. Tell us
All right.
about the museum and tell us what a visitor could expect to see there.
So again, I am just an employee at the museum. The museum is run and operated by the fabulous David and Melinda Becerra. The museum has actually been open 10 years as of this month. And it's a 3,000 square foot collection of different artifacts, witness testimony, everything from Florida skunk ape to Washington to the Yeti. You got audio stations where you can listen to the Sierra sounds and other different audio that has been captured as Sasquatch with the analysis videos and stuff with it. They've got a little mini theater in there that shows a little baby documentary and Native American stuff, which is some of my favorites. And one of their claims to fame is that they have the largest public cast collection open in the United States. So that's really fun. And then, of course, everybody comes to see the DNA lab where the famous Bigfoot poop is on display, which is a 36-inch specimen that was collected by Dr. Matthew Johnson in his area, and there's a little blurb and story behind it. So of course everybody comes to see that just for the giggles of it all. So yeah, the museum is fantastic. You can come in whether you're a knower, a believer, or a skeptic, especially if you're just looking for something a good time. It's kind of got that classic roadside attraction vibe going for it, with the gift shop and you got us up at the front, the staff who can, answer questions, talk with you, things like that. So it's a good time. I'd usually would give yourself probably about an hour to go through and really enjoy it. My first visit there was at least 2 hours because I'm really into the subject matter, and, I've been there a total of about 5 years now on and off, and it's been really, really fun to watch the place grow, and it's continuing to grow, and, there may or may not be another museum in the works.
All right. Fantastic.
Cool.
So tell us about some of the stories that people have shared with you in the museum. Some
I
of the
get
memorable
every
ones.
Oh, there's definitely some memorable ones. So I get everything from, just your classic roadside sighting where, they were thought it was a bear they were driving past, and turns out, it was a Sasquatch because it's this 7-foot tall, hairy humanoid standing there, to some of the more woo aspect ones where, their headlights hit it and only the top of it was visible and the rest of it, the headlights went completely through, to them wearing clothes whenever they've been seen, to them, phasing in and out, where somebody has offloaded an entire revolver, dead point into the chest of one and it not even phase it. You know, there's some very interesting ones. Just the other day, I took a phone call from a gentleman. Actually, he was out of Kansas, who called the museum, and us at the museum, we tease all the time that we are the original Expedition Bigfoot as compared to the TV show of the same name, because the museum's been there a lot longer. So we get a lot of phone calls. You can tell in different regions when I guess they're throwing the show on television of the same name. So people will call thinking that we are the television show. And so it was this older gentleman. You could tell by his voice that he was, a senior citizen, and he was of course trying to get in touch with the television show. And so I ended up just trying to have a conversation with him. It's like, we are the museum, we are not affiliated with them, we just have the same name, but if you want to talk to somebody, I'll be glad to talk with you. And so he started sharing that he's having activity on his property currently, and he's had a male and female that he has seen on his property come up and around because the floodlights, the motion lights will turn on and he can see them. He says the female is probably about 7 foot tall, just based off of where she was standing beside his garage when it hit, and it was very obviously a female when she turned and looked at him. They've been messing in his garage. He's got some prints and stuff like that he's taken pictures of that he wants somebody to look at. But it only has 4 digits that he could see. So he wasn't sure if it was a knuckle print or if it was actual footprint. And then he had seen a very large male several years ago outside of his home property on the highway. He was driving past and he saw one that was standing under a bridge. And just I asked him, based off of the height of where the creek was in the bottom of the bridge, how tall he thinks it was. And he said it's probably about 15 feet. He said that the Sasquatch itself would have been 10-ish feet or so, just because he said if it wanted to reach up with the long arms that it had, it could have touched the bottom of the bridge. And all of this is going on in Kansas. And me being here in the Southeast, I think of Kansas as this, flat, nothing, plains, grassland. Right. So I'm not thinking, there's trees and creeks and rivers and things. Well, obviously they have creeks and rivers, but you know what I'm talking about, where there's types of area that could be able to hide something of this size and height and feed and nourish something of that size. But no, it's actually quite wooded in a lot of places, and that happens to be where this gentleman is at. So I passed that information along to David. So hopefully he's working with that gentleman and getting him some help in his area with the problems that he's having. And yeah, it's actually been kind of a dry spell at the museum as far as reports go until just very recently. It's been probably 2 or 3 months that haven't taken a report, and we were teasing about that. Us other staff members were like, it's all going to happen. It's going to break loose, and here in like a week or two, we're going to get like 7 reports in like one day. Which it happened the other day. I didn't get all of them, but just your classic ones from, I just heard something several years ago that, the only thing that made sense was Sasquatch. And yeah, it's always fun how those kind of things happen like that. They always come in waves. And when I say reports to the listeners, it's not necessarily all recent reports. They're reports that can be from, 15, 20 years ago, people coming into the museum just there with their families. They see what the museum is about. It's not there to make fun of the subject matter. We do take the subject matter seriously. We are a research center as well. So I get people up at the register all the time. It's like, so what do you think about this? Just trying to pick at me. And I was like, well, I definitely think there's something to it. I've had my own experiences, and I've talked to one too many people who've come up in here and shared their stories. And they're like, well, haven't told anybody, but, back in the 80s, and then they break off into, a story that they have. So they feel very comforted to finally have someplace safe to where they know they're not gonna have somebody make fun of them at it. Because I hear that all the time from people, like,
Right.
yeah, you're like the second person I've ever told this. I've told my wife, or, my parents or whatever, and, or my best friend, and, they just laughed at me and told me I was cuckoo in the head. And I'm like, "Well," and it makes me kinda sad, because 'cause I'm like, how does that person perceive that whenever somebody that they're supposed to confide in and, share their truth with, and they not believe them? That's just, it's very sad. So I feel very gracious and very blessed and humbled that, I'm in a position that people can come to for that.
Have you ever had anyone who's former law enforcement or former federal government share anything with you?
Yes, I have. I don't know about let's see, was I'm thinking out loud. Yeah, this gentleman was former. I've talked to one, two, at least a couple of former military folks who have had run-ins with them. One was in Vietnam. That was really interesting. And another gentleman was in I don't want to give out the exact location. It was over in Europe, and they were doing some training and saw one on their um, night vision. So that was very interesting as well. And then, of course, you've had it. I've talked to a couple of people who have had experiences with them here in the United States. Of course, over in the PNW and things like that. I myself haven't taken any reports of or from people who have been like, sent out on missions to take care of like a rogue or a aggressive Sasquatch or family or anything like that. David probably has. Any of the ones that I can remember taking, other than those few that I just mentioned, are usually ones where they're like, "Yeah, I was out, hunting, and this happened to me, but I was in combat, and I was more scared during this, Sasquatch encounter than I was during my combat tours," kind of stuff.
So when we're talking law enforcement, federal government, meaning military, etc.,
Hmm.
um, one of the main questions we get asked as researchers is, do you think the federal government knows these creatures exist, and that are they keeping it under wraps? So what would you say to that question?
Oh, I 100% believe that they know, and that they try to work on keeping it under wraps. And again, that's just my personal opinion on this subject matter, and that's where I wear my tin hat a little bit strong. You look at a lot of these areas that have been preserved as national forest, national parks, state parks, things like that. Those also seem to be pretty big hotbeds for areas of reports that come in from people. And why would they have these specific areas set aside, and that's a kind of a special place for them? So I don't know if those areas have been specifically set up as habitats for Sasquatch and possibly other cryptids, or if it's just a happy coincidence that there's not as much people and human interaction, urban development, that kind of stuff in those areas, so it's kind of a safe place for them to habitate. Or again, if it was done for a specific intent. I Yeah, I think that they've known way too much about these things for too long. I was speaking with another podcaster the other day, and he's also former military, and we were talking that just in military technology, in that, let's pick that subject matter, just like our AI we were talking about, GPS, things like that. Those were all technologies that the military had, let's say, 20 years prior to when we as citizens were given access or use of that type of technology. So if that's just technologies that they had knowledge of and access of, what's to say that they don't have knowledge and information about you know, I don't want to say animals. What's the word I'm thinking of here? Biological entities. You know, I don't know. It just that's just where my brain goes on all of this. I'm a very proud supporter of the tin hat community, and I don't want to dig too much into that. I don't want to get you guys flagged on anything.
It's okay. I'll just share with you an experience that I had regarding the federal government. So
Okay.
I knew a gentleman that was a high executive level in one of the three-letter agencies
Mhm.
that oversees a lot of the wilderness areas, and he had been at a very high executive level in various western states, including Alaska, and every time I went over to their house, I would try to corner him on the topic of Bigfoot, right?
Mhm.
And I would always say to him, "Look, you have been at a high executive level in this three-lettered agency for a long time in various western states that oversees a lot of wilderness area. So there's no way that you don't have knowledge about Bigfoot." And
Mhm.
every time I brought up the topic, I kid you not, he would look down and he would shake his head, and all he would say was, "I don't want to talk about it. I don't
Oh,
want to talk
wow.
about it. I don't want to talk about it." And and I would jokingly say, "What you need to do is retire from the feds, write a book, and get rich.
Right?
That's what you need to do." But
Either get rich or something's gonna happen to his brakes.
yeah, right, exactly. But I would always try to every time I went over there, I would always try to squeeze that topic in, and he would always respond the same. He'd just shake his head and go, "I don't want to talk about it." And he would look down at the floor, you
Ah,
know,
interesting, because he didn't wanna
and
look at you eye level there.
yeah, but I could never get any answers out of him. I tried, but yeah. Before we turn it over to Matt here to bring us home, and I'm going to ask you this question. We asked all our guests this question. We asked you the last time you were on, but for those of you who are watching now who may not have seen our last episode that we did with Amanda, and again, there's no wrong answer. So, what do you think Bigfoot is?
That is a very loaded question. So we was talking earlier about all the different quote unquote camps that people categorize Sasquatch in, whether it's just a great ape, a Nephilim descendant, intra-dimensional being, an extra-dimensional being. I personally think that Bigfoot is a lovely combination of all of those things, because they are very obviously physical beings because they leave physical evidence behind: footprints, scat, hair, the nest that we find, people seeing them with their two eyes, them being injured and leaving behind blood and things like that. But then they also have these very interesting paranormal, I guess, because it's not normal per modern science. So it would be classified as paranormal. They have these very interesting other abilities that people see and talk about all the time with them, where they, phase in and out of your realm of view, whether they are, you know, transitioning over to another dimension. I don't know, because there's been plenty of talks of that where they go basically like walk behind a tree and the next thing you know they're not there, or the tracks literally stop people who are following tracks. Or if they're just phasing, or how did somebody describe it the other night? Oh, they're raising their vibration to where that, they're out of our human eyes ability to see. Because we only have a certain range of vision and hearing as and smell and everything as compared to other animals, I guess you want to call it. I don't consider myself an animal on this planet. So I think that Bigfoot is a lovely combination of all of those. Do I lean more one way than the other? Not necessarily. Again, I think it's just a lovely combination of all of it.
All right, thank you for sharing your perspective. And like I said, there's no wrong answer, but we
Yep.
love we love hearing people's perspective on that question. And
Mhm.
you know, and in asking that question, some guests have said things that we hadn't taken under consideration before.
Mhm.
So
I've
so
heard
we
that from other people who have asked, the similar question on some other podcasts and things that I've listened to, and I agree. It's really interesting to hear people's ideas and thoughts and perspective on it, because yeah, there's some stuff that people who are very much into the ape camp, and they bring up a point, I'm like, actually, I haven't really thought about that. Or, some of the other, and woo stuff people bring up. So yeah, it's definitely really good because again, if we can all just come together and talk and share ideas and stuff, you'd be surprised how much we can put together some more of these puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that. Matt Slater.
Yeah, I've been sitting here thinking about something. This whole show we've been talking about, and we were talking about AI and stuff at first, but talking about theories and research and different perspectives and views of things. The thing that's been floating around in my head is the recent presidential order for disclosure on
Mhm.
UFOs and UAPs.
Yes.
And kind of a thought experiment maybe for fellow researchers, for us, for the people watching at home, is do you think it might be possible to nudge the government now to maybe disclose some stuff about Bigfoot and other cryptids? Would that be easier to do now, since they're like more than willing apparently to talk about UFOs and UAPs? Let's talk about Bigfoot.
That's a great
That's a very
question.
that is
That's a
a,
great
a really
question.
good question. And I'm going to counteract that question and say, why are they giving permission for the disclosure of UFOs and UAP phenomenon, which to me would be more fringe than Bigfoot or Sasquatch would be? Why are they giving disclosure to that first before they would the subject of Bigfoot, unless there's something
Yeah,
more to it?
it's a deep thought experiment.
Mhm.
It is, and I've heard people say, well, if the government were to come out and say that Bigfoot exists, the impacts on society would be would be immense. And
Mhm.
first, it
It
would be
would.
the economic. Allegedly, it would be the first economic impact. The anything that had to do with natural resources would immediately be impacted.
Mhm.
Are everything from natural resources to tourism. I mean, and you'd get also the societal human reactions. You'd get a bunch of good old boys with shotguns running into the
Yep.
woods trying to take one out, and then you'd get other people who were completely terrified because these creatures are near their homes.
Mhm.
Everything that was once was once myth would become fact, and people would be demanding that the government take action, to protect them. It would be some very, very interesting conversation, very interesting fallout. But what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think the fallout would be pretty interesting because I get people who ask that question a lot. It's like, why don't the government just come out and just say that they're real? And I'm like, again, you have to think about the economic impacts. The first subject everybody brings up is the logging industry. Can that happen anymore? Because then you would have to discover if that is a protected territory. Would these beings need protection? Would they be considered an endangered species? All these other things to it, or even that, if they would be considered a peoples. Are they going to be trying to be taxed? That's the first thing any government's
Oh
going to try
yeah,
to come and
yeah.
get. And then, like I said, you got, little mama at home who all of a sudden realizes her house is right next to a Sasquatch habitat. Oh God, she's scared to death to let her kids go outside and go play anymore, and is going to want the authorities to come in and try to get rid of these nuisance creatures, just like they would want to try to come and get rid of a nuisance bear or something. All of these different impacts that it could have, just anything from that small minor stuff to big major stuff
Are
that
they
could change.
responsible? Are they responsible for all these missing people that missing 911 talks about? And
Yeah,
sorry, didn't mean to
missing
interrupt you there.
401. No, you're good.
Well, there's also kind of a flip side to that too, because we're talking about Bigfoot and stuff like that, but apply that same thought process to the UFO UAP.
Mhm.
So if the government knew these things were there, and all these people who claimed who have been taken and things that have been done to them, the government knew, why didn't they stop them?
Mhm.
Same argument, different story.
Exactly. And it all is kind of interconnects there with that, why hasn't something been done? And that's another scary
That's a,
rabbit hole to dig
that's a
down
whole
into.
show.
It's a whole show in itself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And thanks for correcting me on the missing
Oh, you're good.
911 411. But yeah, missing 411. But yeah, there would be a lot of questions that would be asked, and like I said, myth would overnight become fact.
Mhm.
So those impacts could, oh my gosh, it would just be a ripple effect. But does that mean that they shouldn't come forward and admit that these creatures exist?
Uh,
You know,
the truth is supposed to set you free, right? So,
right?
maybe
Yeah.
maybe with a little grain of truth, we wouldn't realize how much, in the Matrix we all are.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think would be um, the big impact of disclosure of Bigfoot?
Well, I mean, we've already talked about the economic impacts and the societal stuff, and I think those are going to be the major ones. You're also going to have a lot more people going out into the woods getting hurt, either by those creatures or just on their own. People go out into the woods anyways, and they try and go off trail. They try and go do their own adventure and stuff like that. They you know fall off a cliff. You get stuck in rocks. They disappear on their own. That's going to happen a lot more.
Mhm.
But yeah, the fish and wildlands aspect of the whole situation, the forestry industry, taking care of the rivers and streams, the environmental protection, that's all going to have to get ramped through the roof, because I think the government would probably classify them as a people, and that's a whole different level of preservation than animals.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. Good discussion. So Amanda, tell us about the podcast and tell us where people can find it.
Yep. So I am co-host on Squatch and Holler podcast with my commander in chief, Roger Williams. He is the brains behind it all, and he graciously asked me to come on and be a co-host with him, and we've been doing that together now for a little over a year. And within the last year, we've also gone under the Untold Radio Network umbrella of podcasts. And for those of you who don't know, that is run and operated by Mr. Doug Hycheck from the Monster Quest fame. I know that was a really big show for me growing up in the cryptid stuff. So that's a pretty big name in this community. And yeah, so most people can find us under the Untold Radio Network YouTube channel. We go live every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. And we are also under Untold Radio Network, Squatch and Holler on all of your podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, you name it, it's all out there.
And you've got a great TikTok page. Tell us about that real quick.
Yep. So I go as Amanda the Bigfoot Lady on TikTok and other social media, mostly Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And I just started putting out silly little memes and little informations of conspiracy humor and nuggets of truth in the Bigfoot subject matter. And it kind of blew up a little bit. And that's where I kind of got started in this whole thing that ended up me being here on the guest on these type of shows, and me being a co-host on Squatch and Holler. People finding me that way, and I try to keep it family friendly, just because I see that as a need in this subject matter. Someplace where parents can go and get information for people, in the younger ages and stuff, to get information. So I've gotten a little out of my scheduling, or my uploading schedule on there, so I've got to get back into that. I've been a little lax on that because life kind of happens and that kind of stuff.
It does. It does.
So yeah, you can find me as Amanda the Bigfoot Lady on most social medias, and you can reach out to me that way if you got any questions about anything. I'll try to do my best to answer any Bigfoot questions you might have, or if you want to share a report with me, I'm also available through any of those platforms through their DMs or private messages, or people can just email me straight as Amanda the Bigfoot Lady at gmail.com.
All right. Thank you again for coming back on a second time. We really enjoy your content on TikTok, and you got a great podcast going as well. And
Well, thank you.
yeah, we love hearing your perspective. Matt, why don't you bring us home?
Yeah, we appreciate you being on today. Like Dan was saying, all the platforms and everything, it's great content. And thank you for joining us here tonight.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I could always come back for a round 3 if you need me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So for myself, Daniel Becker up here in Anchorage, Alaska, for Matt Slater in Quincy, Washington, and Amanda down there in balmy Georgia, which I'm jealous about. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Take care.
See ya.